Assalamualaikum, my dear students. I hope every one of you is doing really good. We are going to start topic number 5 from chapter number 1, that is human organ system. And in today's lesson, we are going to focus on two topics. One will be peripheral nervous system, and the second one will be working model of the nervous system. But before moving on to today's topic, let's have a recapitulation of previous lesson. In previous lesson, you have studied about spinal cord. Spinal cord is actually an extension of medulla oblongata, and it runs backwards inside our backbone, and it is actually made up of interneurons. This one is spinal cord, and it is starting just after the medulla oblongata of brain and running backwards in our body. Okay, then there were a slide about the functions of spinal cord. There are two main functions of spinal cord. Number one, it creates a link between the brain and different body parts and conveys information between the brain and body parts. And the second function is it controls some reflex actions like involuntary and immediate actions. Those actions which do not actually involve brain, but these are executed by spinal cord. In addition to these involuntary actions, it is also involved in certain other involuntary actions, for example, breathing and heartbeat, which are primarily controlled by hindbrain. Okay, now today's lesson, the first topic, peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system, what actually peripheral nervous system is? It's simply a system which consists of network of nerves. Peripheral nervous system is abbreviated as capital PNS. Peripheral nervous system is also called as PNS. Okay, it includes all the nerves which spread throughout the body in order to connect our body parts with the central nervous system, that is brain and spinal cord. The nerves which we are talking about making up the peripheral nervous system are of actually two types. One is cranial nerves and the second category is spinal nerves. Now, what are cranial nerves? Simply the nerves which arise from brain are termed as cranial nerves. This one is brain, and all the nerves arising from brain are termed as cranial nerves. Why the term or word cranial? Simply because brain is enclosed by the structure cranium, and the nerves originating from brain seem to come out of cranium. That's why they are termed as cranial nerves. The second category of nerves is spinal nerves. The nerves which arise from spinal cord are termed as spinal nerves. This one is spinal cord, and all the nerves arising from the spinal cord and spreading throughout the body are termed as spinal nerves. There is certain number of both the cranial and the spinal nerves in our body. 12 pair of cranial nerves are present, and 31 pairs of spinal nerves are present. That means the total cranial nerves are 24 because it is present in the form of pairs. So 12 pairs means total 24 nerves, and 31 pairs of spinal nerves means total of 62 nerves. Okay, the second topic of today's lesson is working model of nervous system. That means how our nervous system functions to coordinate our body activities. As you all know that nervous system is actually involved in coordinating our body functions. How it coordinates our body activities? Simply it detects the changes present in our environment and Not only it detects changes, but it produces response which we call as action. This is a diagram which will give you a better understanding about how the nervous system works. For example, just consider an example that eye, which is actually a sense organ, detects some detects some change in our environment. The sensory receptors present in our eye carry that message in the form of sensory input and transfer that message towards the brain. Brain and spinal cord study that message, and after that, that message is transmitted through motor neurons in the form of motor output to effectors. And effectors are the organs which actually take action. So this is how our nervous system actually coordinates one single function. There are certain terms which are very essential to be understood while talking about how the nervous system works. One of them is stimulus. What is stimulus? Stimulus is any change in our environment. The change can be in our external environment, that means the environment present out of our body, or it can be in the internal environment, that means the environment present inside our body. That change is detected by a specific receptor in order to initiate a nerve impulse. That change is simply termed as stimulus. Stimulus is a singular term. When there is one single change, we use the term stimulus. But when we are talking about lot of factors or changes, then the plural term, that is stimuli, is used. These are certain examples of stimuli. For example, heat is one of the stimulus, cold is another stimulus, pressure is another stimulus, and sound waves are certain other stimulus. The second term which you must be familiar with is receptors. Receptors are the specialized organs, tissues, or cells. Yes, receptor can be an organ, it can be a tissue, or it can be a cell present in our body which is specialized. Specialized for what? Simply to detect a change or stimulus in our environment, that is termed as receptor. There are certain examples of receptors. For example, chemical in air, that is actually acting as a stimulus. That stimulus is detected by the receptors present in our nose. That's how we feel smell. There is another stimulus, that is cold, that is detected by the cold receptors present in our body. Heat is another stimulus which is detected by heat receptors present in our body. There are certain pain receptors which detect the pain, and several other receptors which are involved in detecting the sound. So that is how the specialized organs, tissues, or cells are present in our body to detect a specific kind of stimulus. Okay, this diagram is also present in your book. This diagram is giving you a complete idea that how our nervous system actually functions. For example, just take an example that there is a glass filled with water and suddenly you feel thirst. So the stimulus of thirst is actually sensed by sensory receptors, and that is carried towards the brain processes it, understands it, and after that sends this message through motor neurons to the effectors. In this case, the effector is actually the muscle present in our arm. These muscles allow our arm to bend, and as a result we take that glass of water and drink the water. So that's how you can understand that how our brain coordinates our whole body in order to execute one simple function. Okay, this slide is actually explaining what was actually visually shown in the previous diagram. I have already explained. Let's talk about once again simply. The sensory neurons carry the message regarding the stimuli to form the nerve impulse, and that message travels from the receptors to the central nervous system. Once the message reaches to the central nervous system processes that message and transmit the nerve impulse to the motor neurons. Now, once the message is delivered to motor neurons, these motor neurons carry the nerve impulse to the part of the body which we call as effector. Motor neurons carry the nerve impulses to the part of the body called as effectors, and effectors then produce a specific response which we call as an action has taken place or our body has executed a function. Muscles and glands are actually the examples of effectors. So, this is the end of today's lesson. In today's lesson, we have focused on two topics. One is peripheral nervous system, that is PNS, that is simply a system of nerves. And the second was working model of nervous system, in which we have studied that how our nervous system actually functions, and then we have studied about certain terms like stimulus, receptors, and effectors. Okay, that's come to the end of this lesson. I hope, my dear students, you are now clear about all the concepts which were included in today's lesson. Thank you very much.